Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Depressed Dior, and this is Middara and Tabletop Simulator. So I cleaned up everything here. Everyone's HP should be correct. Yep. Okay. My throat's a bit scratchy, but I'm trying to record as much as possible. We're in the home stretch at this point. The number of encounters we have left is in the single digits, but there's also quite a bit of dialogue. Though we do also skip a bunch of pages simply because of our flags. Some of them are finally kind of coming around. Some of them are definitely more important than others, as you probably have noticed. In any case, let's go to Into the Earth 371. As they neared the mountains, crags of rock began breaking through the forest. Shayless turned around as they neared a bend and stopped the group. Okay, guys, I need you to stop and think about what we're trying to do, she said. I don't think you understand how powerful Shadow Lord is. These things are unkillable. The only thing we can hope to do here is get in and out with the Pontifex piece and pray to God we aren't noticed. We need to get justice too, Zeke added. Shayless gave him a weak nod. If she's still alive. They continued around the bend, coming to a sudden halt as they saw what the outcropping was concealing. A massive chasm opened in the ground in front of them, stretching so far that its most extreme edge was hidden by shadow. The gaping pit was intimidating enough on its own, but it was also surrounded with a shimmering bubble of energy that stretched as far as the mountain before vanishing into the rock. A single object floated about 30 feet in the air. It seemed to be made of white stone, though Nightingale's eyes wouldn't focus on it. She felt a slight pain in the back of her head, the same she felt when she first saw the Maluma. Jagged gears and protrusions of stone were in constant motion, bending through themselves and emerging changed on the other side. Beside her, Zeke stooped down and picked up a rock, then tossed it at the bubble. It stopped dead in the air before it reached the wall, hovered there a moment, then came flying back at him like a bullet. He barely ducked in time. Somber Realization 370, which is back the other way. Shit. Shayless pulled out her map again. She flipped it in several directions. After pulling it at it and twisting it around, she crumpled it and threw it on the ground. What are you doing? Rook rushed over, grabbed the map, pulled it open, and smoothed it. Either this thing is outdated, or the cartographer was a dumbass, or... Nightingale stepped up to her sister, grabbed her by the shoulders. What's the problem? It's all bad, Shayla said. Everything's bad. I should have recognized the direction we were heading. I should have remembered. She cursed again as everyone stared at her expectantly. This is the Eyrie. There's no way to get in there. Justice is lost. That piece of the Pontifex is gone forever. What do you mean? Zeke sounded surprised that Shayla was giving up. Shayla shook her head. You don't understand. Shayla pointed into the distance as at a soft green glow shining up into the sky. That's the Aegis Stone. It keeps everything in the Shadow Lord's lair sealed behind a barrier they can't pierce from the inside. Damocles stepped up. Any barrier can be broken. That stone is the reason Greyhaven is safe, Shayless glared darkly at him. It was overrun with creatures before Lo and Ida used the Aegis Stone to close the Eyrie. A lot of people died, and back then, Greyhaven was just a frontier outpost. Even if we could, we shouldn't. It's up to us to trade. It's not up to us to trade thousands of lives for one. She lowered her voice to a whisper, or two. Can we just open it long enough to get in, then close it behind us? Nightingale asked. We could leave someone up here to get to the door for us when we finish. Shayless put a hand on her shoulder. That's not how it works. The Lojong killed a dragon to make the Aegis Stone in the first place. It's not something you can turn on and off. Could Tyrael or Abigail know anything? Damocles asked. Echo was able to send justice in there somehow. If she can do it, so can we. That's a good idea, Chayla said. Greyhaven isn't far. We can just head back and check with them. We don't have to give up quite yet. Nightingale nodded fervently and turned to leave. Behind her, one of her friends didn't move. Zeke? She spun around and found he was walking the other direction. I can't just leave her here. Zeke kept walking, moving closer to the distant greenish glow. Nightingale stopped behind him, resting one hand on his shoulder. Zeke, I need you. He looked up and could see the physical toll that the Maluma had taken on his friend. Her skin was pale and sunken, her eyes bloodshot. Even her hair seemed frayed. Nightingale smiled, even in her obvious malaise. We'll save her, and don't worry, I won't tell your family you're swooning over another girl. I know they have had such high hopes for us. She wrapped two fingers together, blushing, uniting. Thanks, Zeke sighed, turning slowly away from the barrier. We'll be back, Justice. Just hold on a little longer. Do we have a reluctant partnership? Yes. So we go to give us an hour, 371. As the group turned to leave, Zephyr cleared his throat, causing them to stop and turn around. He had stepped up beside the barrier along Ezra and Bria. Zephyr looked the barrier up and down, nodding to himself. Give us an hour, and we'll have this open. What? Shayla stopped and spun on him in horror. Do you know what the Eyrie is? You can't be as old as you are and not know. Lo and Ada Zhang had to travel to Arkala to make this Aegis Stone. It's not something that can just be replaced. You absolutely cannot break it. Without this barrier, those monsters will overwhelm Greyhaven. They could kill hundreds of people before the city even knew what happened. We have to rescue Justice and get the Pontifex piece, Zeke said. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think we should let Zephyr do it. We won't be down there long. I understand your concern, Shayla, but even the destruction of Greyhaven is an acceptable price to pay for the safety of all of Middara, Zephyr said. Sharon and the rest of the council would take far more lives than the ones in Greyhaven if given a chance. Zeke frowned at him. You had me on your side, and then you go saying shit like that. He shook his head. I'm going to pretend you didn't just say that. I still think we should go in. Justice is in danger, and we can't just abandon her. I won't let you put everyone in danger, Shayla said with obvious irritation. Echo got Justice in without destroying the barrier. Terrio and Abigail Zhang rule Greyhaven, and they were my close friends. If there are any other ways in, they'll know. It took us less than a day to make it this far. I bet if we turn around and hurry back to Greyhaven, we can be up in the Emerinthian before dark. We cannot wait, Zephyr countered, advancing on her. Justice is in grave danger every second we delay. If she's still alive at this point, it's because the Shadow Lord doesn't want her dead, Shayla snapped. She could see that the word stung at Zeke, but it was true. Another few hours aren't going to change anything, but if we blow the Aegis Stone to pieces right now, people will die. Zephyr looked like he was about to protest, but thought better of it. He turned on a heel and stalked back the way they come. Fine. We'll do it your way for now, princess. He paused only inches from Shayla's and lowered his voice to a whisper. I'd consider making haste. Sharon's servants will not wait on you, and neither will I. Shayla scowled at him as he left. Her face softened as she looked at Nightingale. We can't let all those people in Greyhaven die. Nightingale nodded. I don't want anyone dying because of me. We'll find another way. Through. Whatever it is, we'll find it. The Emerinthian, 372. Alright. Nightingale was pleasantly surprised to find that they faced no serious dangers on their way back to Greyhaven. By the time late afternoon had changed to early evening, they were back at the outskirts of the city. Greyhaven had already come alive with lights, tens of thousands of little fires and chunks of glowstones flickering throughout the city. They found their way to a gondola station and waited for their turn to ride up through the floating islands. After finding out about the Aegis Stone, Nightingale had trouble enjoying the trip. She spent most of the ride staring out the window at the little lights below. 4 guards in Greyhaven uniforms gave them grumpy looks as they arrived at their Emerinthian. It's getting late. You better have important business, one of the men said sternly. Shayla gave him an annoyed nod. I suggest you be careful how you talk to members of the royal family. You serve the Zhang family, and you don't even recognize their newest scion? The guard at least had the good sense to look abashed. He returned to attention, saluting her. Forgive me, Princess Shayla. We weren't expecting you. Farland, see them to the throne room. He waved to a shorter man wearing the same style of armor. I assume you're meeting your cousin, Lord Zhang? Zeke nodded. Yeah, thanks. Farland rushed over, then ushered them into the castle with a brief bow. They walked down wide corridors lined with magnificent works of stained glass, and past dozens of soldiers and castle functionaries. They finally reached a massive chamber. Nightingale could feel the magic in the air, making her hands stand on end. At the end of the hall was a circle of strange markings on the floor cast in metal. They surrounded a space 10 feet across with a purple glow. Shayla knew what to do and walked purposely past Nightingale toward the circle. This way, my lords and ladies, she said as he stepped to the circle. Follow me. As soon as Farland stepped inside the circle, he rose off the ground and floated quickly through the opening in in the castle above and out of sight. Rook gave them a smile before falling backward onto the magical symbols, then rising with his arms out. Zeke stepped forward with a devious grin, looking at Remy. He walked up to her and patted Gage, who was sitting on her shoulder. Gage looked at him skeptically, but then mewed approvingly and looked away. For a moment, he gently picked Gage up. "We don't get funny cat videos here, Remy." Zeke tried to stifle a laugh. "I miss them." "What are you talking about?" Remy raised an eyebrow. Zeke turned back to the circle and held Gage over it. Remy lunged to catch Gage, but Zeke let go before she snagged him. Gage gently flopped out of Zeke's hands and rolled toward the ground with a surprised squeal. Before he hit the floor, he spun and began to rise. Gage tried to move in the air, his little legs flailing as he continued up. Instead of moving, he started doing barrel rolls, making little squeaking noises as he disappeared up and through the hole above them. Zeke doubled over with laughter as Remy jumped into the circle after Gage. "Oh no, Gage!" Remy's voice faded as she followed. Nightingale tried to keep a straight face, but the vision of Gage's cute little paws batting at the air was too much for her. She broke into uncontrollable giggles. "You guys are ridiculous." Damocles frowned and walked into the circle. When Nightingale recovered, only she and Shayless were still on the lower platform. She glanced toward her sister. Shayless stared up through the opening at the huge suspended room above them. "Scared of heights?" Shayless smiled weakly. "I haven't seen Tyrael or Abigail in a long time. But waiting won't help. Let's go." They passed into the spell together, and Nightingale squeezed Shayless's hand the whole way. She found herself in a massive stone chamber, suspended in open air. Roughly round and walled with elegant pillars. A railing of dark stone was all that separated the chamber from a drop of at least 100 meters to the rest of the castle below. She could imagine the view. Looking out over the edge at the city in full daylight, most impressive of all was the ceiling of stained glass. It depicted a battle in vivid detail, with two figures standing bravely against something scaly and monstrous. Nightingale guessed that the figures were Lo and Ida. In front of them, the couple they had come to see sat atop a pair of stone thrones, watching them expectantly. Do the players have experienced guide? No. We'll go to Reuniting with Friends, page 374. The woman rested on the back throne, leapt to her feet as a wide grin spread across her face. Her long black hair cascaded down her back, and she wore slim golden jewelry around her neck, wrist, and head. Iridescent blue wings sprouted from her back, matching the color of her form-fitting dress, which flowed just below her knees. Her companion, Tyrael, sat beside her. Tyrael had all of Yun's good looks, without seeming constantly aloof to the world around him. He wore plain clothes instead of armor, though his forearms were wrapped in thick leather. His back was lined with long, massive, curving spikes that ran upward from his tailbone to his shoulders. "Shayless, you made it." Patrick said you might be coming." Abigail hurried across the room toward them, and Nightingale felt Shayless's clammy hand slip away. "It's been so long," Abigail said, wrapping her arms around Shayless and pulling her into a tight hug. Shayless stiffened at the embrace. "Abigail, I missed you. I wanted to come visit sooner, but—" "I know," Abigail said, fluttering her wings. "We've all been busy." "Patrick!" Nightingale smiled up at him as he approached from beside the thrones. "I heard you made it to the capital." Patrick lumbered over, holding a weapon over his shoulder. "I have you guys to thank. Shayless and I followed you for some time," he sniffed, wrinkling his nose. "Smells like you ended up in the swamps. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to help you guys. Looks like the big man kept you safe, though." He offered his hand to Rook. He took it in his firm grip. I'm her knight, after all." Patrick nodded, letting go a second later. "More importantly, you're her friend. Glad you were there." "I would have killed him if anything happened to you in Ramstead," Shayless cut in. "So I've heard." Nightingale went to slap Patrick on the back playfully, but instead stumbled and caught herself on Rook's shoulder. Patrick observed her ashen skin and frail posture, and his expression grew serious. "Still have that damn parasite, I see." Nightingale nodded faintly. "We know how to get rid of it now." Tyrael made his way over and clasped hands with each of them, in turn before stopping at Shayless and giving her a stiff hug. "It's been too long, Shayless. We don't get to see anyone anymore." Tyrael gestured sidelong at Zeke. "I mean, look at this guy. Zeke? Zeke, man, it's great to finally meet you." Zeke straightened his coat. "Your father, Yun, has treated me well back in the capital. I can see the family resemblance." "Yeah?" Tyrael sat up straight. "I'll take it as a compliment." He's probably still throwing huge parties and wasting all the king's money, huh? My money, Shayla said. You think Balthazar lets him touch the treasury after that thing with the acrobats? Tyrael laughed. While I detest my father's inability to govern anything, I must say you share a resemblance to your own father, Zeke. He pointed up at the window. Zeke followed his gaze, staring at the stained glass. I look like I'm from a PS1 JRPG? Tyrael scoffed. Same sense of humor, too. You'd be proud. A scream cut through the conversation, making Nightingale spin and draw her weapon in a single quick motion. Remy pointed across the room at where someone had been lurking near a pillar. What is she doing here? Remy snarled. Aisling had been hiding in the shadows, wearing heavy manacles around her arms and legs. A bored-looking guard stood nearby, only occasionally glancing over at her. Patrick reached over, gently pushing Nightingale's weapon back down. Aisling's been nothing but upstanding since we left Ramstead. You don't need to worry. She tried to kill me, Remy barked. Aisling raised an eyebrow, held up her chained hands, and rattled them noisily. Patrick took a step toward Remy. Remy, we took her to Helenia. Balthazar wasn't there. Shayless let her tag along, and she helped us find you. Aisling's not off the hook for what she did. We're just keeping her here until judgment is passed. She looks like she had an easier trip than we did. Aisling's clothes were clean, her makeup was clear, and she had fresh bows in her ridiculous hair. She hadn't been in a swamp for a week, Shayless interjected. Yul might have executed her, but Patrick came to me first, and I decided Aisling gets to help us out. It isn't your decision to make, Remy. Remy didn't seem to be listening anymore. She stalked up right up to Aisling with one hand on her weapon. If you're expecting me, Remy slapped her across the face with all her strength. Aisling flopped to one side, whimpering, clutching at her face. I don't expect anything from you. Nightingale caught Remy's hand before she could hit her again. Remy, stop. Remy jerked her arm away, glaring furiously at her. You're not the one she kidnapped. Look, she's in shackles, Remy. Aisling's not going anywhere. Nightingale stumbled back, sweat dripping down her face. Remy opened her mouth to yell again, but Shayless was too quick for her. Remy, my sister is in desperate need of rest. Aisling's judgment will come. For now, leave it to me. Remy held Gage close to her like a stuffed animal. She turned toward Nightingale and exhaled, muttering something under her breath. I'm sorry, Night. Let's do what we came for. Shayless motioned to Nightingale for a half-hearted introduction. Abby, Tyrael, my little sister. Nightingale waved meekly at them as Abigail leaned in close to her. She's just as pretty as you, Shayless. Nightingale glared back. She looked like shit, and she knew it. Listen, it's awesome to meet you guys, but we've got something urgent on our hands. We can hang out more once we save our friend. Do we have a reluctant partnership? Yes. So we get to meet. So we finally got reunited with Patrick, and Aisling is still very much alive. And who is this? Is 377. So it'll be this way. All right, but who are those three? Tyrael adjusted to the back of the... Oh, also, here's Abigail Zhang with her wings. Anyway, all right, but who are those three? Tyrael gestured to the back of the throne room, where Zephyr, Ezra, and Bria had been keeping out of the way. Shayless opened her mouth to introduce them, but Zephyr interrupted. We are the Anointed. My name is Zephyr, and this is Bria and Ezra. Abigail and Tyrael exchanged a confused look. Anointed? Tyrael shook his head. Zephyr's eyes narrowed. We work to protect Middara from entities you couldn't fathom. I don't expect anything useful to come from this meeting. You royalty are always so caught up in your own affairs that you can't see the real danger waiting outside. Abigail and Tyrael looked even more confused after Zephyr spoke. That's great. Abigail looked with wide eyes past Zephyr to Shayless. No one in the throne room needed magic to read her thoughts. What is this lunatic doing here? Shayless cleared her throat. The Anointed are involved. We've come to rescue the same person. I think my sister can explain. Nightingale did. She started with the Maluma, though she was vague about the details. She went over what had happened in Gehenna and eventually described what had happened to Justice. That's why we need to get into the Eyrie. Tyrael and Abigail looked at each other with dark expressions. Tyrael eventually broke the long silence that followed. You're right. This is a problem. Tyrael ran his hand through his hair thoughtfully. Listen, don't think we aren't taking the threat to you or your friends seriously, but the Aegis can't be destroyed. Abigail said, finishing his sentence. And I don't mean it's impossible to break. I mean, we can't destroy it because it's the only thing keeping Greyhaven safe. If it were, the Erie's monsters would be released and be a threat to our people. We know, Nightingale said, but what about just bringing it down temporarily, Zeke interrupted. We'd only need someone to lift the barrier for a minute, just long enough for us to get in. Then they'd just have to camp out nearby and let us out again. Terrio pointed up at the stained glass ceiling. At his gesture, light flooded the room, illuminating the window in perfect clarity. It was a scene of a battle with a man and woman dwarfed by a creature so large it took up most of the window, covered in spines and breathing death from its mouth. The Aegis Stone was created without blood, Terrio explained. Your parents nearly died to get it. You have no idea what they went through or what they fought to create that stone. If it were damaged, it might be impossible to replace. You guys are the rulers here, Zeke yelled. There has to be a secret entrance or a trick to opening it up or something. We can't just leave Justice down there. She needs our help. Zeke, think about what you're asking, Abigail looked at him, with sympathy in her eyes. You're asking us to undo everything that your parents did. You're asking us to put our entire city at risk. Terrio took a deep breath. Your parents traveled to the Middle Passage and made a deal with the lesser demon Rubicant. That deal got them into Arcala, where they had to kill a dragon. A dragon, Zeke. Then they ripped out the damn thing's heart and made the Aegis Stone from it, all to make Greyhaven a safe place to live. To attempt any magic that might bring down the barrier down the barrier that the Aegis Stone is emitting, even for a moment, would put all of our lives at risk. Would your friend want to sacrifice so many people for herself? Zeke hesitated. No. This is not her choice, Zephyr said. The threat to justice is serious, but it is far from the only one. However much Greyhaven and its people might be put at risk by the removal of the Aegis Stone, the threat to all Middara is greater. He stepped forward into the center of the room and stood tall. Consider for a moment how powerful Shadow Lord is. You think it wouldn't recognize an opportunity like this? Justice is carrying with her a piece of a Pontifex. The Shadow Lord will sell justice in her magic. Charon will get his hands on the piece of the Pontifex she carried, and all will be lost to us forever. You're making a lot of assumptions of fear, Shayla said. You're predicting distant danger. Maybe you're right, but maybe you aren't. Nobody wants to get in there and get that Pontifex piece more than I do. She looked briefly at Nightingale. But if we break the seal, Greyhaven will be overrun, and people will die. If Sharon gets the Pontifex, everyone in this whole country will die, Zephyr argued. This is what the Anointed do. We make the hard decisions. We choose to sacrifice whatever it takes for the greater good. This isn't open to debate, Terrio roared, rising to his feet. I won't put my city in danger. I'm taking your word on this Pontifex piece being as important as you say. In fact, I'm taking your word that this Sharon is even a threat. How do I know he exists? I don't know anything about you, Zephyr. What I do know is that the Erie possesses an immediate threat to thousands of people. I'm not going to risk their lives because of an enemy I've never even heard of. Very well, Zephyr muttered. Then he fell silent. Nightingale watched him closely, worried that he might lash out, take his men and attack, but he just turned and walked back to join his companions. Abigail put her hand on Tyrion's arm. I can see how much you all care for your friend, for Nightingale, and for the cause you believe in. She looked at Zeke, Nightingale, and Zephyr in turn. I understand your feelings, but exhaustion never helps when making important decisions. Please, enjoy our hospitality for the night. We can go over everything again tomorrow when everyone is rested and fed. All right, do we have last of our coterie? No. Go to the next check. Do we have massacred? No. So we go to A Stupid Boy, page 381. Rook shifted uneasily in his sleep, hearing something rustling close by. He had always been a light sleeper, and a few seconds later he was awake. He sat up, looking around the room. Everything seemed normal, but he'd become paranoid since Gehenna. He got up and poked his head out into the hallway. It was empty. He sighed in relief and had almost lain back down when he noticed Zeke's empty bed. He shot back to his feet. Zeke? He called out tentatively. Zeke? He looked for a few seconds, but nothing answered. Shit. Damocles groaned, covering his face with a pillow. What is it? Zeke ran off, Rook said, beginning to change. I can only think of one reason he'd go alone. All the gold in the castle says he's going to try and rescue Justice. How is he going to get through the Aegis Stone? Damocles sat up and began grabbing at his nearby gear. He can't, Rook said, but he could get himself killed alone at night in the forest. Wake the others, Damocles suggested. Shayless is going to be pissed. Those damn Zhongs are nothing but trouble, Shayless yelled 10 minutes later. They hurried through the halls toward the gondola station. I'm half tempted to let him get his ass kicked out there. Teach him some humility. If I can't figure out a way through the Aegis Stone's barrier, what does Zeke think he can do? He's usually not this stupid, Nightingale muttered. He's sort of lost his mind over this whole justice situation. He needs to stop worrying about justice and worry about himself, Shayless muttered. Going it alone in unfamiliar territory without a map, completely insane. Zeke has recklessly gone after justice on his own. Mark him as unselectable on the adventure sheet, and we got to pick the active group. Alright, so I already knew this was coming. So, unselectable on Zeke. So, our options for a replacement. This is going to hurt us quite a bit, because obviously Zeke is our primary support. There's a few options we have. But all of them are kind of, there's disadvantage in all of them. The biggest disadvantage, of course, is majority of them are kind of bare bones on their gear right now, lacking like accessories and things of that tier. So it ain't gonna be pretty. So our choices are Damocles, Remy, or Zephyr. Zephyr has practically nothing but his base gear, which isn't the end of the world, but he is using a tier 2 core. He does have Mend and Magic Armor and Paradigm Assault, so if he does get hits, he can potentially give people haste and barrier and stuff like that. Damocles is not support, he's offense. He can potentially provide Vow tokens, and that's about it. He's also the only person, he's still wearing tier 2 armor, as well as, yeah, just tier 2 armor. Everything else is pretty standard. And then the final option is Remy, who's got summoning, which is a bit of a headache, but she also has, he's the only other character that has banished knowledge, which is haste. And we definitely want haste for Nightingale. So I think I'm going to go with Remy, though I'm probably going to be trying to avoid using summoning if I can, and just hold on to it, because I don't want to juggle all the characters. But it is what it is, unfortunately. So Remy does have a cloak. I did have enough presence of mind to give her a cloak, it looks like. Friends with benefits. Ooh. Helping hand. Summoning. Banished knowledge. Oh, right, I forgot. Familiar. Otherworldly. She's still using tier 3 weapons as well, which in turn is going to be tier 3 weapons on our summons as well. It's not the end of the world, but she is kind of lacking. So she doesn't even have full relic slots, it looks like. Yeah, that's fine. Alright, let's go ahead and set our stuff. 3, 2, 6, 3, 4. 7 movement. Not sure why it said 8. Probably a misclick. 12 defense. No armor. And then I have... So it's 12 HP. And then I get another 9 from the armor. Another 4 from animism. Another 8 from these markings, so that puts us at 33. So a little less HP, but not the end of the world. We do have a teal casting die that I'm not going to use. And then red and... Okay, yeah, it looks like everything here is set. And then we got gray and green for our attack dice. Okay, that works. Dynamite tokens go with Zeke. Also, I want to grab Remy because she is the only other character that has a decent utility core. So we got that option. If I do end up summoning with her, I will do what I can, I guess. All right. With all that said and done, we just set the actor group. So now we go to so flag check. Do we have experience guide? No. We go to Patrick's help, page 382. Patrick peered through his bedroom door, his hair disheveled, and his eyes half open. Nightingale blinked, blushing deeply at what she saw. Patrick was wearing only boxers, and his entire body was covered in tattoos. I need your help, Patrick, Shayla said from over her shoulder, not seeming even momentarily flustered. Dumbass is trying to save justice. If they were somehow... She froze, squinting into the darkness over his shoulder. Nightingale followed her gaze through the gloom, and Nightingale could see a familiar girl in the sheets behind Patrick. Shayla leaned in, lowering her voice to a dangerous whisper. Aisling stays. Tell a guard she's in here, and don't let the others overhear. Remy would freak out if she knew you were... She paused and rolled her eyes, forgiving Aisling so quickly. It took physical effort for Nightingale to keep her mouth shut, but Remy was only feet away, talking with Rook. Shayla noticed her expression and turned slightly. Don't. You saw what Remy did in the throne room. We don't need the drama right now. Yeah. Patrick scratched his head and closed the door a bit more, looking ashamed. I'll meet you up front. Unbelievable. Shayla scoffed as the door slid shut. Nightingale worriedly glanced toward Remy, but her friend hadn't noticed. A few minutes later, they'd made their way to the gondolas, and Shayla led them down, still muttering curses and glaring at Patrick whenever she thought the others weren't looking. Patrick joins the party. The parties now do these steps. So it is possible to get Patrick sooner, as kind of implied from the experienced guide flag. But this is the point where you actually pick up Patrick, if you didn't get the flag. I believe his last name is Brown. So we finally officially get him. So UM13, which gets us... we don't need the Black Hand nightgown because we already got that. And there you go. So we have Patrick Brown. His special ability is anytime he uses a consumable, instead of discarding it, he makes a lore 10 check. If he succeeds, it puts it into the party stash. Honestly, I find that more detrimental because since I rely so much on utility cores, you can't grab anything from the party stash except when you're like in essentially a story round. So it actually kind of makes things more difficult with him. He has top tier strength, nearly top tier perception, and then he's pretty low on everything else. He's going to have 44 experience points to spend, and I'm going to have to figure out what to spend it on. Patrick's actually a really good character if you pick him up early and you want to use him as a sinful privilege type, because he can actually do some work with his shotgun. Speaking of shotgun, he joins the party with the inscribed shotgun rare weapon, if possible. So we will. I didn't buy it, so inscribed shotgun. We get that for free. It is a two-handed ranged weapon, range 4. Every range greater than 1 reduces your attack roll by 1. So it's even though it's a ranged weapon, you want to use it in melee. When making an attack with this weapon, you make 2 separate attacks against the same target, and then you flip it. And then the flip side is essentially a melee weapon, where you can spend stamina to unflip it, or if you get a burst, you can follow up unflip with it after an attack. The shotgun also has the ability to follow up push 2 with force 10 and the difference hit, and then shields do plus 2 physical damage each, which is amazing, and then the burst, of course, gives plus 4 physical damage. Alright, he also joins with a random rare core armor and a random rare relic and 100 gold. Okay, so let's get our 100 gold first. That'll put us at 546, not that we have time to spend it. And then we get a random relic. Alright, gets us this one. This is Causality Engine. It's a conviction upgrade green, which is pretty good. And you can flip it to do a spell 15 against all non-boss figures within SOI, and deal magic damage equal to half their remaining HP rounded down. So I can definitely take down some big things. And then it's a random armor core, is what it said. Yeah, random core armor. So we're gonna have to put these together and then shuffle and take the top. Okay, we get a core. And this one, of course, is the Charm of Ash. Alright, and then I'm gonna do sort to put that all back together. And then put all that together. Okay. And then after that, I need to spend experience points and then choose the active group. So unfortunately, Patrick's not fully geared yet. I think you can gear him up with stuff in your stash, though. So I am going to go ahead and do that. Let me check something. BRB. Yeah, I'm just going to assume he has this stuff equipped. I mentioned this before when like getting a new party member and setting the active group, how like shuffling gear around, it's unclear what you can actually do. We definitely could spend our experience, though, and get disciplines. So he's got a two-handed ranged weapon, so we definitely want to get kill the messenger, at the very least. Down the masses is not useful for him. I've done some weird things where I try to like implement both like a melee and ranged build for Patrick, and seeing if that does anything. I mean, the biggest issue right now is we're running out of stuff to do. Like this is tier 1 Sanctus. We have 5 cards left in it. That's it. The things that we have a lot of still is like, of course, Marshall, Crore, and Assemblage. But an ally with an SOI can dodge. Counter when making a dodge, get bonuses to the dodge. And that's for making a melee attack, which isn't helpful. Let's do anticipated attack. Search through this. Blood Rage, when you have damage. Yeah. So you physically perfected. When an attack targeting you misses, and all current action, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I think I know what I want to do. So let's put back physically perfected. If I do end up using him, I want him just to hit hard once. So we're going to go Mage Breaker. With Morbid Envy. Because this works with works on any attack. Same thing for Mage Breaker. Alright, so that there is 3, 7, 12, 19. So we've used 19 so far. So that leaves us with 25 left. I think I'm going to do Master of the Vessel. That way, if I do attack with his with the butt of the weapon, I can force it to give me a burst. So that'll give that's 9 more. So that leaves us with 16 left. And then the question is, what do I get next? Yeah, look at tier 3 subterfuge here. There's 2 cards left. One of it's for crossbows, one-handed crossbows, and the other one is whenever you do stuff with an attack. Speaking of, don't we have there's a move here. Not promise. I might still take physically perfected. Actually, yeah, I will take physically perfected, and that will give him a boost of HP. So that's 6 experience there, leaving him with 10 left. This is not a super optimal build, but there's some certain cards I want to leave open. The only question is here. Yeah, I think I'll leave Onslaught for Shayless in the future. I think that will actually that will be a really good one because of the follow-ups. It costs 3 stamina though, and you can't interrupt it. So 3 for 1. It's a bit messy, to be honest. Promise. Yeah, there's a lot of good things I just don't want to get rid of is the problem. I kind of want to leave Magebreaker for Shayless. That way she can maximize her damage. The rest of the tier 2s are not very good for Shayless. And Shayless is the ace at this point. There's no question she is the ace. So tell you what, we're going to take back Magebreaker, save that for Shayless, and then she can eventually get the Nemesis reinforcement on herself, or enforcement on herself. But what we can do is get Bring the Wrath. When you defeat an opponent, you may end the current action and all abilities if you do move 3 spaces and make an attack. So we'll do Bring the Wrath instead for him. So that's going to give us back 6 experience, and then we're spending 8. So we're going to spend, so we get back 6, and then we spend 8. So that leaves us with 8 experience left. Now the question is what do we do with the 8 experience? We can get a tier 1 essentially if we want it. Let's do Speed and Justice. Just to give him a dodge, essentially. Like I said, not the most optimal build. It's going to give him 5 experience there. So let's make sure we did our math right. It should have 41 here. So 3, 7, 12, 17, 24, 32, 41. And then 3. Okay, yep, that works. So that's everything. So he's got some okay defense. Kill the messenger for shooting. Just some extra HP for tanking. Also, I can always swap out burst for additional stamina. And then Bring the Wrath. If I ever get kills, I can get extra attacks, which in this case would probably be the rifle butt. And then, of course, you know, any damage I do, I can do Morbid Envy. And then Master of the Vessel is so I can, if I hit with the rifle butt, I can unflip this card at the cost of 0 stamina. Alright, so that's what we got for Patrick. And that is Patrick. I get to set the active group, but I'm not going to change anything around, because I'm unclear whether or not I can actually trade things around. It does seem a bit weird, because I do know kind of how the setup for Chapter 5 is. If it is set up where you can't trade at all, this means you get Patrick, but you literally can't use him, because he's not fully geared. So I don't really know exactly how it's supposed to work. In any case, let's go ahead and grab Patrick. I think he's in here somewhere. I'm going to have to go grab him, so give me 1 second. Alright, problem solved. If this was our old version of the module, he would just be in one of the baggies, but since we hadn't pulled him out since then, it is what it is. So yeah, I'm going to keep the same actor group, and we go straight into the forest at night, page 381. Traveling through the forest at night was nothing like exploring it during the day. Nightingale expected as much. Yet, even so, she found herself walking closer and closer to the rest of the group, keeping her weapon drawn. The worst part by far was the sounds. With only the moonlight to guide them, it was impossible to see anything more than a dozen steps away. Bushes rustled, branches snapped, and something made splashing noises in the streams as they passed. Anything still alive was either prey that knew how to stay quiet, or a predator who didn't have to. Shayless led the way, stomping forward like an angry storm. She shoved obstructions away, ignoring the little scratches that sometimes followed. She was arguing with Patrick in a hushed voice. Occasionally, Nightingale would hear Shayless curse, but what they were talking about was otherwise inaudible. "We're making a lot of noise, sis," Nightingale muttered, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Maybe we should slow down a little." "No time," Shayless said, turning on her. "If he somehow breaks the Aegis Stone, words can't describe how screwed Greyhaven will be." "At least we'll be able to save Justice," Nightingale whispered, barely loud enough to hear. Shayless looked up, her eyes darkening. "Oh, sure. That'll be great. We'll pull her out of the Eyrie just in time for her to watch the whole city burn." They didn't make it all the way to the Eyrie. As Nightingale had feared, they'd been attracting a lot of attention. It didn't take much longer for the first predator to emerge from the trees. Night Fighting 384. Alright, in the shadow of encroaching night, the forest has taken on a much more sinister aspect. The darkness shrouds the nearby thicket, making it difficult to see the creatures that threaten you. A large river sits between you and your destination. Alright, load the page. Alright, so we got a lot to work with here. Making sure tentacles are in the right spots. Is there only 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Yeah, it looks like there's only 5 in this one. Loot there, the exit's there. The exit's there, as you can guess. You're looping around, going into a cave, essentially. Everything else is to note. Starting location's bottom here. So this is the map where I was like, I had to ask a question about merc hounds because they are submerged, but you still can't target past them because they block line of sight despite being submerged. It's really really broken logic. And unfortunately, we have a lot of nasty things to deal with here. We got a living antediluvian, 2 water loas, a viscera aramid, and then 3 merc hounds. Murky merc hounds, and then of course the corpse collector. This one we have to fight normally because we don't have Zeke with us. Thanks, Zeke. So go ahead and add all these to the initiative. As you can see, it's already getting crowded with 5 enemies, or 5 enemy types rather. There is an achievement. When an adventurer removes 5 tentacle tokens from an adventure card in a single turn, read the following text. So what we need to do is get all the tentacles onto one person, preferably Rook, and have him just rip it off his body. Encounter Esper right now is Viscera Aramid. Murky Mercounts are going to spawn from the Corpse Collector. The current is 2 spaces going towards the Corpse Collector. Special rules. There's no objective tokens. But there is a special rule called Night Fighting. The darkness shrouds your advance. All adventurers start this encounter with darkness. This effect cannot be removed from this encounter. If an adventurer has any of the following items equipped, their items light their way and they are not affected by the special encounter rule. So, one of them is the God Machine. Yeah, I hate how this is listed. It should be a bulleted list. They should have probably forgo this art here and went with a bulleted list just to get room. But in any case, so God Machine, which is what Nightingale has, so she's immune to darkness. Or she's immune to at least the night darkness. It looks like I'm going to have darkness on Remy. Now this says specifically Adventure, so it's not going to apply to the Espers when I summon them, if I summon them. But yeah, there's a bunch of options here. Unfortunately, Amulet of John, would that be one? Spectral Banner, Doomcaster. Yeah, it doesn't look like we have most of these, which is actually going to suck for Shayless, because unless Lorelei's Tainted Gift is one. The Savalin, Hammer of Evil, Similitude, Doomcaster, Spectral Banner, Angel Symbols, Cave Bow, Causality Engine, Iridescence. Yeah, it looks like Shayless is going to be Darkness, which sucks. We will need to get her something to... I'm kind of surprised that our Call-in Halo doesn't provide light. And we're definitely going to have Darkness on Rook, it looks like. Not much I can do about it. Alright, so yeah, they're all going to have Darkness. Which means I'm pretty much never going to be dodging again. It means... unless I somehow stumble upon an item that can get me some illumination. Yeah, I'm still kind of surprised. That's just... yeah, we don't have anything that will help us here. Yeah, I was worried about this particular combat just because of how it was. Alright, with that, of course the objective is just get to the blue exit. As you can probably tell from the spacing here, we're probably not going to get a restore. And loot level is rare, I believe. Yes, it is rare. So we can go ahead and put that up. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. And when we come back, well, when we come back, I'll have these characters placed, and then we'll see what we can make happen here. I am the Depressed Eeyore, and this was Middara on Tabletop Simulator. I'll see you guys later.